Hey guys, welcome back to Fantasy Tips, and today we're going to be talking about the goaltender rankings for the 2021 Stanley Cup playoffs. We're going to be talking about the rankings for the entire playoff long and the rankings for just the first round of the playoffs. Before we get started, guys, please leave a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and follow me on Twitter. I would really appreciate all of your support. Without further ado, let's jump into my overall rankings for goaltenders for the playoffs. So first on the list, I've got Philip Grubauer, Colorado Avalanche, and I don't think anyone's going to argue with me on that one because Colorado has a very obvious number one goalie, and that is Philip Grubauer, and they do also have the best odds to win the cup. I don't think there's any surprise having Philip Grubauer as the number one goalie. Number two, I've got Andrei Vasilevskiy, Tampa Bay Lightning, and I think the Lightning have something to prove. Kucherov is finally back, and I think they're going to make a really, really big push this year. Florida's going to be a very tough opponent to face in the first round, but Vasilevskiy is an MVP caliber goaltender, and he can do very, very well. Next is Peter Mrazek, Carolina Hurricanes, and Carolina is looking like a fantastic team this year, and Mrazek is that number one goalie, but if he does falter a couple games, Nedeljkovic could be coming in. So as long as he stays good, he is that number one Carolina. I do believe that he'll at least knock off Nashville, and they could make it pretty far as long as they can also make it past Florida or Tampa Bay in the next round. Next, I've got Tristan Jarry, Pittsburgh Penguins, and the Penguins are looking really good as of late. Deadline acquisition, Jeff Carter's looking really good. Kapanen was looking like a great offseason acquisition. Overall, that team is meshing really well. They're going to have a really, really, really hard series against the Islanders, but if they can get out of that, there's a very good chance that they make it out of their division and into the semifinals. I really like Jarry because he is also a bona fide starter for Pittsburgh. Next is Jack Campbell, Toronto Maple Leafs. And I do believe that Toronto will be starting Jack Campbell in the playoffs. I think they'd be stupid to start Frederik Andersen. Jack Campbell has been clearly the better goalie as of late. Freddie Andersen played a game recently and he didn't look very good. Jack Campbell has been very, very consistent. So if they don't start Jack Campbell, obviously he's not going to be this high for me, but I do think that they will, and he should be able to do well for them in the playoffs. Next is Mike Smith, Edmonton Oilers, and they have a pretty easy matchup against Winnipeg. I don't really see a scenario where Winnipeg beats Edmonton unless Hellbuck really stands on his head. Ehlers could be back this series, so that's going to help them as well, but I do think Edmonton will knock off Winnipeg. They'll have a harder round next round when they'll probably face Toronto. Mike Smith has had a really great year, and I think that he can carry that momentum through. I've got Mike Smith at number 6. Next, I've got the Vegas goaltender duos, Leonard and Fleury at 7 and 8. And they would be at number 2 if there was actually just one starting goalie, but I think they might continue to just rotate starts between their goalies throughout the playoffs like they've been doing all year because it's worked for them, right? So if they do that, obviously neither of them has crazy value because they'll only get half the starts and maybe half the wins as well. So I'm not super, super high on either of these guys, and that's why I've got them at number 7 and number 8. Next, I've got Semyon Varlamov, New York Islanders, and if the Islanders can pass the Penguins, I actually see them winning the cup this year. But again, Pittsburgh is going to be a really, really hard team to beat in the first round. They're no slouch like they were a couple years back. They have a very, very good team. Tristan Jarry is much better than Matt Murray was a couple years back. So they're going to have a pretty hard time. But Varlamov also has some shutout upside, right? The Islanders play a very defensive system, and I actually really like Varlamov. I've got him at number 9. Next, I've got Tuukka Rask, Boston Bruins at number 10, and I had him a little bit higher than this, but after the loss last night, I kind of had to move him down a little bit because now Boston has a little bit less high of a chance of winning the series. I do still think they will win the series, but they'll have to work towards it being down 1-0. I've got Tuukka Rask at number 10. Next, I've got Sergei Bobrovsky, Florida Panthers, and he should be starting for them in the playoffs, but one bad game and they'll move on to Knight or Drieger, right? So I'm not super high on Bobrovsky, but he is the go-to guy for now and should get the starts in the playoffs as long as he plays well. Next is Connor Hellbuck, Winnipeg Jets. And again, he is only this high because there is a chance that he does stand on his head and win the series all by himself. That's why I've got Connor Hellbuck at number 12. Next, I've got Cam Talbot, Minnesota Wild, and this is kind of a favorite for people to choose like a little bit of an underdog to win. I honestly don't think Minnesota's going to beat Vegas. They're like a juggernaut team, and honestly, I want to see that Vegas-Colorado quarterfinal. So don't beat them, okay? Uh, there's a good chance. I mean, they have a very underrated team. They've got Kaprizov. Fiala's a great player. They've got good defensemen. And Talbot is a pretty solid goalie, and that's why I've got him at number 13. Next is UC Saros Nashville Predators. And along with the Montreal Canadiens, they're the biggest underdogs in the first round. They have the lowest odds of winning, tied with Montreal. Carolina is a really tough opponent. But if any goalie can stand on his head and beat them, it's UC Saros. He's been unreal the second half of the season. He's just been crazy. He could maybe even win the Vezina. Let's see if he can carry that momentum through the playoffs. I don't love his chances of winning the series, but I do like his chances of being able to bring the series to at least 6 or 7 games. Next is Carey Price, Montreal Canadiens, and as a Habs fan, I am a little bit biased here, but I'm not going to be too overly optimistic this time. I know the Leafs can't win in the playoffs, but at the same time, the Habs have not been very good of late, and I don't know what to hope for. What you got to hope for if you're going to take Price in whatever playoff pool you're going to play is that Price stands on his head and he turns into playoff Price that we know that he can be. If he does, Montreal has a shot of knocking off Toronto. That is their only chance. Next is Ilya Samsonov, Washington Capitals, and it's kind of a messed up situation there. I don't know who's going to be getting the starts. Vanacek got the start the first game, but, he got injured, so will he be back the next game, or will Samsonov get the start? Will Craig Anderson get another start? Who knows? That's why I've got him so low on this list, despite Washington winning their first game. Next is Jordan Binnington, St. Louis Blues, and I think they have the lowest odds of actually beating their opponent. I know Nashville and Montreal are being given the lowest odds, but I don't think St. Louis is going to beat Colorado. I just don't see it happening, and I think they have the best odds of actually just getting swept 4 games in the first round and Binnington not getting any wins at all. So I'd rather stay away from Jordan Binnington. Last but not least, I got Frederik Andersen, Toronto Maple Leafs, and the reason for that is because there's a small chance that they don't go with Jack Campbell and they go with Frederik Andersen, and if they do, they're not very smart because I don't think it's a very good idea. But if they do, Andersen should do decently. I do think that Campbell is the better choice for Toronto, though. Now, moving on to the round 1 rankings, they're pretty similar, as you can see. I'm not going to spend time going through each and every one like I did before, but as you can see, Leonard and Fleury got moved down just a little bit because, again, they're splitting the starts, and so at best they're going to get 2 wins each, and we don't even know what the split's going to be like, so let's wait and see what that's like. That's why I lowered them a little bit. Maybe Leonard will see more starts than Fleury. Who knows? Mrazek also moves up to number 2 because he arguably has the easiest matchup and should pretty easily beat Nashville. If you notice, Craig Anderson has been added to the list as well because him and Samsonov, I don't know who's going to start next game. Vanacek is injured. Will Vanacek start next game? I don't even know. So right now, it looks like it's probably going to be either Samsonov or Craig Anderson starting next game. Anderson played insanely well. I wouldn't think for a second that they would consider starting Anderson next game. But after tonight's performance, I'd be like, okay, well, maybe they will. So if he keeps playing well, maybe they'll just keep rolling out Craig Anderson. I don't know. So right now, he's on the list, but if they start Samsonov, he falls right off the list, and you don't have to worry about Craig Anderson anymore. And that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching all the way through, and thank you for your support all season long. I really couldn't have done this without all you guys. I really appreciate all that positive feedback, and trust me, you will see me back for next season, at the start of next season, and I will continue to post a few videos throughout the playoffs and the off season as well, so don't worry about that. Guys, thanks again for all your support. Please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, follow me on Twitter, and I'll catch you in the next episode of Fantasy Tipped.